Hi everyone. So this is we're gonna talk about the evolution of the NFTs, and we're gonna make it as informal as possible. So first, we're gonna start this by asking everyone to just maybe introduce themselves shortly before we get into the conversation. Yeah, would you like to take?
I'm Will, co-founder of Syndicate, where we set up investing DAOs, and creator of Adventure Gold, which is a derivative for the loot ecosystem. That's an in-game currency for loot. I got into Ethereum since the pre-sale. I'd been doing hackathons and side projects in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and I saw how Ethereum could solve a lot of that. So I took the $10 I got for free as my Coinbase sign-up bonus and tossed it on the pre-sale. If I'd put $100 in, I could have bought a house, but hindsight's 2020. Um, and then got into NFTs in 2018, back when people thought that blockchain gaming would be really big. Um, I did not bet on the right blockchain games, but saw a lot of that come to fruition with Loot.
Hi, this is on. Hi, everyone. I'm Santiago, I guess. Most recently was at Parify, and we were very focused on DeFi. But to me, started getting more and more interested in NFTs for a couple of reasons. I think they're the Trojan horse of crypto. They're onboarding so many people. Over the last like 10 years or so, it's been like difficult to explain to the average person why they would want to be or get interested in crypto. But I think NFTs are very relatable, and I think it's very exciting to see that. So I'm spending a lot of my time investing and also just collecting at this intersection of like DeFi and NFTs and gaming. I think they all come together really nicely in like really changing our relationship with money and how we think about just our experience in using the internet. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Pplplsr. I'm a digital artist and stoked to be here.
Cool.
GMI.
So I'm Lili, and I've been working on the project called Crypto Manga NFTs. I've been working with Ethereum for a while now, and the first project that I made with few friends called like Ready Cards. So we made the first like Hong Bao on Ethereum, and it was really fun. Like in I think end of 2018. So let's get started. Well, okay. So I actually want to kick off by talking a little bit about Monograph, which was a project like that I would consider like the first ever like digital collectible based on the blockchain. Like it was there since I think 2016 on Bitcoin. Um, that was super interesting, but then there was a project after that one more step into this what we know as it is digital collectible right now, which is for example rare peeps. And this project for the first time introduced a rarity score for digital collectibles. But after that, then I think most of the progress has been like happening on Ethereum ecosystem. And one of the quite notable ones, quite in the recent time, is probably about the loot, right? And this is, I would say, one of the first time that I've heard about like composability in a way that is linked to game as well in terms of like the usability of NFT. Would you like to maybe talk about this?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the genius of Loot and what made it successful was that Dom Hoffman, the creator of Loot, he put it out there, and it was intentionally very simple and very stripped down, and it was a fundamental RPG building block that anyone could do anything they wanted with. Um, the thing that was really interesting is that because all of the data was on chain, it was fully composable. So what do we mean by that? So in Loot, you have weapons, you have armor, you have headwear, you have you have shoes, and all of these is available on chain for other NFTs and other smart contracts to access. And this is really transformative, and this is a step forward in the NFT space where on-chain data is not typically done, because it meant that other projects could start to leverage Loot for the rest of the ecosystem. So one example is that there's already a playable Loot game that everyone can play right now, which is called Genesis Loot, where it took all of the loot bags and it essentially scattered key items of loot lore throughout the entire ecosystem. So you have to go and you have to track down all of these items of loot lore, which is only possible because all of this data is available on chain. So I think that as L2s expand and as storage costs drop, we're going to start to see a lot more on-chain NFTs, and then that allows you to create entire ecosystems just like Loot, rather than like one-off communities that don't really interact with other communities at this point in time.
Yeah, and Santiago, you have been in the like working Ethereum for a while, right? What would you think is kind of like the most notable use case for an NFTs, or what interests you?
Yeah, just to build off of what Will was saying, I think if you're a project building in Web3 and Ethereum, I think NFTs are great customer acquisition vehicles. I've seen so many DeFi projects or just projects in general use NFTs as mechanisms to attract or re-engage their community. Not only is it a great way to obviously raise funds in perhaps the most like safe way, which is you're not selling anything other than art. And I think it just really reinvigorates the community. Projects from all kinds of stages are using NFTs to, because when you think about it, when I invest in a project, to me the most important thing is a community, and I think really NFTs are, wrapped together really nicely. People feel they have more attachment, and there's a lot of emotional cachet to that NFT. Certainly you can have like a big ownership in a protocol. You can own the token, but there's something about NFTs that just makes it more relatable. It's very visual. It's sometimes it has utility like in the Loot ecosystem, and so all kinds of projects can really use NFTs as a way to not only like build alignment with their community, but also like protocol to protocol NFTs. I've seen it could be pretty interesting.
Cool. And then I also want to ask Emily about the from the perspective of an artist, right? Because we also talking about the NFT, like have composability, and then also like in terms of like help fundraising, for example. And there was this project, this Infinite Garden. Yeah, maybe if you want to talk about.
Yeah, so Infinite Garden is a documentary project or a documentary about Ethereum that's currently being made. In fact, I don't think they're here right. Well, they are here at LisCon today, the filming crew. And so essentially what happened was they approached me to see if we could collaborate and do a crowdfunding for the film using NFTs. And so I think this is probably one of the first like use cases for it. And I mean, it was like largely successful. We raised over 1,000 ETH within 48 hours, which essentially just funded the entire film, just basically from selling my NFTs, which are also like the first movie poster NFTs that like I made. And essentially how it works is like with different like tiers, so based on like the top contributor would be would be the executive producer, and then the second one would be co-executive producer, and then everybody else who like contributes a minimum of 1 Ethereum will get just an NFT as a reward, and also a token to sort of show that you supported the film. So we're seeing more, and obviously after this happened, we saw way more use cases of this in other films, like adopting the same way to crowdfund their projects using, platforms like Mirror. And so, yeah, this is just like from an artist perspective, I think it's great that I could provide some value to cryptocurrency space as a whole in a way that I didn't think was previously possible.
Yeah, totally. I think that like in the past months, or I think in the past 1 year, I have seen like so many like shifts in approaches, new use cases, and it's just so amazing because it's getting better every time. What do you guys think is going to be kind of the next step going from here? So I have a tiny opinion here that I think is gonna be the mixture of like NFT and game and kind of DeFi. And I have this theory that I think because people are now like knowing what NFT is, and there are more like developer working like building like smart contracts. So in a way, we may be able to kind of onboard new group of people who's like interested in playing games, interested in arts, and maybe also have the like kind of interest also in DeFi as well, instead of like coming here to invest in instead of like traditional finance. What do you guys like think about this?
Sure. I guess I'll start. I think it's super interesting. So, like Bored Apes, for instance, 50% of their buyers never touched crypto before. I was talking to the team, and there's a couple interesting things with Bored Apes. One, obviously, new users that had no interest in crypto all of a sudden do, and they may not even realize that they're using crypto in the same way that you would explain Bitcoin or Ethereum, but they have to get initiated. They have to set up their own wallet and think about buying this thing called ETH. And so again, it's sort of like really good technology gets adopted because it just provides a really good experience, and people come here without maybe realizing all the intricacies of crypto and all the nerdy tech things that we love to talk about. NFTs are very relatable, and the other thing is like they kind of inverted the go-to-market strategy, which is they've created this incredible community, and then they've done all these partnerships, and the roadmap is just it wasn't just an NFT drop, which I think if you initially you just say, hey, they're just selling like these apes and whatever, I didn't think much of it. And then their roadmap has just expanded so much, and they've had so many different protocols approach them and do collaborations, but both in the crypto sphere and outside as well. They have meetups all over the world. A lot of artists are getting interested in that, and so again, I mean, I think the nice thing about NFTs is that they're kind of your digital identity in many ways, and so that's very relatable to everyone. And I think more people are going to latch onto this idea that we're spending more time in the digital world, and NFTs are how you dress up your identity, right? I don't think of myself as, I guess more and more I've just started to look at my punk as my identity, and I'm never going to sell it because it's just tied to me, And so, anyways.
Yeah, and related to that, I think that NFTs right now they're mostly bought, and because they're mostly bought, you see a lot of criticism of the space of, well, what does ownership really mean if you're buying an NFT and it's an image that anyone can access? I think that that's very much a take that like is not looking at the future, because the future of NFTs that I think is really interesting is related to identity is on-chain track record, where NFTs are things that you receive for actions you do, and they become mementos, they become milestones, they become your credibility in your resume. And that's where I think the criticism of NFTs that exists right now about ownership will go away, because like, yeah, sure, you can Photoshop your name on a diploma, but that doesn't mean that you like actually graduated from the school you're photoshopping your diploma of. And when NFTs become on-chain reputation, I think that that is the future that where ownership starts to really click, because ownership of an image kind of clicks. It's really interesting when like I believe Bored Ape gave away commercial rights for the NFTs. Like that's super fascinating, and we're already starting to see some ideas of ownership in terms of IP. But as soon as we see ownership in terms of verifiable track record, I think that that will accelerate the space tremendously.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you mentioned about like NFT as identity solution, right? As I think for most people, like who's not crypto native, actually entering Ethereum or like understanding the Web3 through NFT is much less intimidating. It's like you're starting with fun and like maybe, it's like it's no right or wrong, right? But when you're entering it through DeFi, it's like either you lose money or you win money. And I think this is a very different mindset that it brings to people who like joining this. Um,
Yeah, that gets to another thing about the NFT space that I think is going to shift over time, which is that currently, ever since Bitcoin, there's the mentality that scarcity is what gives things value. And Santiago, I can tell you have strong thoughts on that. I'd love to hear them. Yeah, and scarcity is what gives things value, and that things that are scarce, because there's few of them and lots of people want them, the price will go up over time. And I think that the NFT community right now has mostly relied on scarcity. I think as they shift to an abundance mindset through things like on-chain reputation and on-chain track records, where what you've done naturally inflates NFTs, but inflates it in a way that shows what you shows what you've accomplished. I think that we'll start to move away from the scarcity mindset and towards more of an abundance mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think it's utility drives value, not scarcity. And I think we're very early in the NFC journey, but I think I'm very excited to see, how these different NFT communities will collaborate with each other, how the metaverse will evolve. Loot is a fascinating example, but how is Loot going to interact with a game like Axie, and how are you going to stitch together these virtual worlds? Is I think sort of like the design space for that is vast, but I think we're more and more over time we're going to have to think about how do we bring more utility to all these people that are here, they're interested, and it doesn't stop with collecting. That's sort of just the first entry point, and so yeah.
Maybe talking about the artist perspective a little bit more because I think like artists, I'm not calling myself an artist, I'm a designer, but like, you know, these creative people also, we are like a big part of the NFT kind of movement, right? What do you think we can do more to like um, on board like artist or illustrator who's currently not like super into crypto yet, into like more talents into this industry? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think speaking for myself, I kind of got into the space because I feel like the world before Web3 and crypto, especially for creatives and creators, is a very saturated market already. There's not that many job opportunities, and it's very, very competitive. So honestly, the biggest drawing point to motivate creatives to even enter crypto and Web3 is just that there's so many more opportunities to advance your career and make money in a way that's not as easily accessible in a pre-Web3 world just because it's already so saturated. So yeah, I mean, I think that alone is a huge like drawing point, especially for myself. That was pretty much the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, from a perspective of like the creator, I also kind of think because I used to work for advertising agency before, and at that time, I feel like someone like us was just kind of like, you know, it's actually be very important, right? Because like the creative like department is one of the important department, but the thing is, we are not the main like person. Like on the other hand, we actually doing the artwork, you know, but then somehow the industry flip in a way that no, you know, we actually didn't come before, but then somehow NFT is just, I think the business model is just so straightforward that you go straight to someone who make this piece, like not through the layer of I know like five departments, you know, and then like actually we make this work, but then we kind of lost in the conversation, like who actually make this, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm not an artist. I can barely draw, I guess. But I think it's really fascinating that anyone can be discovered, and I think it's a discoverability piece that has been again gatekeepers, right? You had to be in a gallery, and I mean it's so hard probably to get like access to these people, and they extract a lot of value from you, and it's really fascinating to see artists connect directly with their communities, and a lot of people are like, well, why would like this random piece of art have so much value? And I think it's really kind of in your face of how, a lot of what we think about value is being like put to test. It's not just a pretty picture. You might not like Bored Apes. Some people love them, other people hate them. But the reality is, it has a very deep community, and the mimetic culture of that is strong. And so it's just fascinating to see these, what we think of value and the perception of value is put to test, I think.
Yeah. And related to that value, I mean, I think that composability is one thing that makes NFTs very interesting. Portability is another. The fact that if you don't want to use a specific marketplace or a specific wallet, you can use literally any of a half a dozen options. And a lot of the Web2 world was about capturing as much proprietary data as you could and keeping it all within one platform. Whereas NFTs are fundamentally interoperable from the start, which I think also explains some of the values we've seen in the space. Like, is that something where when you know that it's portable, you know you're not dependent on one provider or one platform being successful. As long as the whole NFT space is successful, you don't need to bet on Instagram being successful or Pinterest being successful or Etsy being successful. You can be across every marketplace. So I think for as speaking as a builder, like not being stuck in a platform and not being dependent on a single ecosystem is incredibly valuable because it means that I'm not beholden to that ecosystem's choices. I'm able to move around to any of the ones that's the most builder friendly or artist friendly, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, just one thing, like loot, for instance, was fascinating because it wasn't like it was just words, right? And then and it really kind of placed a lot of the emphasis and focus on composability and on the data, and that allows you as sort of like inverting on how you can build on top of NFTs. And so I think it was just sort of shattered a lot of notions of what NFTs are and can be, and it just opened up a whole new kind of design space for what NFTs can be.
Um, what about what do you guys think about the aspect of the DAO? because obviously I think DeFi DAO and NFT DAO, they're like quite different. And even the NFT DAOs, there are many different types. For example, there are like collector DAOs, right? Like Pplplsr DAO is a collector DAO, I would say, or curator DAO. But there's also, for example, MeBits DAO, which is like also a collector DAO, yes. But like less of a curator, is like we're in it together in the same community, so it's kind of have a different goal. What do you like think about this?
Yeah, I mean, woo. Hello, is it working? Hello. Oh, it works now. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, DAOs are also, a way for people. It's like online clubs, right? Like it's for people to find like meaning, purpose, belonging. People are familiar with this, even in like Blizzard games or World of Warcraft. There's like different like clans and stuff. Like you can almost think of DAOs as this way, except that obviously with the blockchain now there's a way to sort of either monetize that or also make decisions like using governance tokens and in like a more fair way. But none of these are concepts that people are not familiar with. And so yeah, like I think every DAO which is different is just a different subset or club or social group that people are trying to like fit into because humans are social creatures.
Yeah, and I think that at Syndicate we set up tons of DAOs, and the thing that's really interesting is that if you look at the Ethereum white paper from 2013, they defined two types of DAOs. They define decentralized autonomous corporations, which produce dividends and are profit-seeking entities, and you vote with your number of shares. And they define decentralized autonomous communities, which are membership groups where every member has an equal vote. And the funny part is, I think that like NFTs are the decentralized autonomous communities envisioned in the original Ethereum white paper, where it is membership in a community, it is voting based on that membership, and uh, NFTs are actually quite true to the original vision from 2013 that was defined there. Um, it's just that the concepts have evolved so much that the things that we call DAOs are not really decentralized or autonomous anymore, but they're like larger communities. And the things we call NFTs are in many ways the decentralized autonomous communities outlined in the original white paper.
Yeah, actually, what I want to see is some sort of like a new like game experience that using like being DAO, being part of the DAO as part of the game. Like currently, there is a model of like token gated, right? So basically, like friends with benefits and so on, which is obviously you use NFT, but maybe it could be part of the game that you like being in a game, you are automatically being part of the DAO, and then somehow you use NFT as a representation of like identities and maybe some items you gain from the games. It could be interesting. I mean, I haven't seen anyone doing this. Maybe already exists.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
Oh yeah.
ultimately, I mean, I think like what I hate to say it, but NFTs are like cookies of Web 2 because there's so much richness. So like if you're here today, I put up a QR code, say scan this, you're gonna get an NFT because you were in my talk, and all of a sudden I know that you were here. So if at any point going forward, or I could just airdrop all of you over time certain things because hey, you're here, right? And it's kind of an empty room. So there's value there. And so I think over time, as Will was saying, like you start collecting these things, and it just creates a profile for who you are. And again, that NFT gets you access to other different things. And so ultimately, we're early, right? One of the other things that Will was saying, which is great, which is earning NFTs, not just buying them. I think will become more and more of a trend, especially as it relates to DAOs and giving finding the right people in this metaverse. Anyone can go out and buy an NFT, but earning it, I think, is where the real value will become over time as you think about your digital identity.
Yeah, so we're gonna wrap this up now. If anyone has anything that you would like to mention before we closing this panel, please feel free.
Yeah, I think that over time, like NFTs and DAOs will begin to blur. They're really getting at the same things, which is how do you build strong communities. And if we start to think of, honestly, the original definitions from the Ethereum white paper of protocol treasuries are decentralized autonomous corporations and NFTs are decentralized autonomous communities, I think that we actually like they are hitting on the same thing. And just because one happens to be an ERC20 and one happens to be an ERC721 in many cases is not the dividing line. And a lot of people think it is, but I think that the line is far more blurry between NFTs and DAOs than people think.
100% on that. Cool. So thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you all of us being here.
Thank you.